Welcome to
The Cleaning,
a podcast about Apple TV Plus's show Silo Season 2. My name is Catfish, and with me, as always, is someone who also carries around measuring tape in case any random ladies need a new suit. It's Bubba!
Catfish, I'm so pleased to be joined by somebody who, like Solo, doesn't remember how to tell a joke. And so it's going to be a great podcast today. Guys, we're talking about Season 2, Episode 3, an episode entitled Solo. Bernard turns to Judge Meadows for help. Billings begins to wonder if he's being lied to. Billings, come on. You're beginning to wonder this? Plus, Juliette finally meets the man in the vault. Catfish, on this pod, we're going to have our rankings of the episode.
Okay.
Silo speculation. Is it better in the silo or the real world? The episode breakdown, judicial debate,
yeah.
Catfish questions,
Jesus.
feedback, and our book talk section, which tonight might be all spoiler, no Catfish. But forget that. Let's get to it. Do you have your rating for Season 2, Episode 3, Solo?
Well, I gave this episode 8. What I like to call quadruple S's.
Quadruple S's?
Yes, that is, he's the only guy there, but he's still got a nickname. That is Silo 17 Slaughtering Solo.
What do you mean? He was in the room. He didn't slaughter most people.
That is going to be one of my Catfish questions.
Okay.
We'll go over it later. But
yeah,
I know this is going to sound funny. But just sitting there and let the episode wash over me, I really enjoyed like the mysterious stuff going on with Solo and Juliette. And I enjoyed that up until the moment that he came out of the silo, out of the vault. And then I was like, no, I want him to go back in the vault and just be mysterious. And just answer questions from back there. I prefer that. I mean, I love Steve Zahn, but
yeah,
it was a little much. Granted, I'm sure it's supposed to be much. The guy, I mean, it's surprising he can even maintain a cognizant conversation with anyone after how long he's been alone. It's a little bit questionable why he came out. But Bubba, I just love Sims, and I forget his name, the guy who was interrogating Flame Bomb Fred, what's his actual name?
Patrick Kennedy.
Sure, Patrick Kennedy. Patrick Kennedy's in the torture room with the ball gag in his mouth, and Sims comes in. He's going to play the nice guy. Never the right approach. And our boy says to Sims, "Can you stop saying mysterious shit?" And I just wanted Sims to say, "Bro, don't you know what kind of show you're on?" This is all mysterious.
That's how he's supposed to talk. Sims got the memo.
So frankly, I enjoyed the mystery and the sound, the like mounting potential horror of what had happened in Silo 17, in addition to what we knew already. And so that was really cool. Again, I have a question about that. Maybe we'll cover it as we go through, and then I won't have a question anymore. But I enjoyed that part of it. I'm kind of strangely not enjoying the sort of the machinations between groups down below.
Huh, okay.
And so I think that's why I kind of put it down a little bit. So Bubba,
well, 8 out of 10 is pretty high, Kevin.
8 out of 10 is pretty good. I have to say, I enjoyed it. As I was watching, I was like, this is like slow but captivating. I found myself really engaged and like listening for clues. So I think that was really good. I probably paid more attention to that than I did to any of the mystery shows where I was supposed to listen for clues and figure out who got killed. But Bubba, who cares what I think?
Not me.
What do you think?
Okay, my rating out of 10. Listeners, if you've been on this ride with me, the first episode I was a bit higher than Catfish. The second episode of Season 2, I was much lower than Catfish. Here we are on Episode 3 Solo. How am I going to rate it? Well, Catfish, I'm higher than you. I'm going 9 quadruple S's out of 10.
Oh, yeah. Silo 17 Slaughtering Solo.
No, you messed that up.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. What was it?
If you watch the episode, you know that a quadruple S is Sexy senior citizen scenes. I'm gonna measure you up, girl.
Woo!
Whoa, boy. Bernard, he wants to share a suit with her, if you know what I mean.
I think Bernard needs to be shadowed by HR.
Yes, dear Lord. Inappropriate, Bernard. When a lady invites you to her place, you don't say, okay, let me measure you up. I've got the tape here. I'm joking about that, but I went 9 out of 10 because the very last episode, I was like, I'm not sure these showrunners, these producers really know where they're going. This episode, and I'll talk about it in a spoiler way once we get to the book talk section, but this episode, there are at least hints of like, oh, they're really maybe just rearranging it to get to, rearranging point A and B and maybe going B to A to still get to the same endpoint, which I think is so good. I think there was a lot in this. I think there were a lot of clues. People who are interested in these mysteries do want to kind of go through everything that everybody said. Everybody, not just Solo. But Solo said some interesting things about like, hey, the day that everybody went out and died, it was a really good day. You're like, well, until the poison game. Solo. I really enjoyed it. I just really, really did. They gave us this episode a couple days early because in the United States of America, there's this holiday Thanksgiving. And about Thanksgiving, I want to go to this feedback from somebody named Skeptical Zach.
Oh, skeptical. I love anyone who's skeptical. What does Skeptical Zach have to say?
He left a comment on our YouTube channel, and he just wrote, best silo content in my opinion. Skeptical.
Oh my God. You know what? The fact that he is skeptical and yet still is able to recognize excellence. What a guy.
Number one, thank you so much, Skeptical Zach. But it is Thanksgiving here in the United States of America. If anywhere you are in the world, we are so thankful that we're a part of your enjoyment of this great show, Silo. And we want to thank you guys for listening. If you download the audio podcast, if you watch on YouTube, thank you so much. Once again, we wouldn't do this podcast if we didn't get such great feedback in questions and comments in the feedback that makes us think. Really, all we want to say is that, hey, keep giving us that feedback. And if you could, it really helps. Whether you're listening to audio podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, those kind of things, subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. That's really all that we're going to ask is your comments, your likes, hit the thumbs up button. You guys have made this such a fun show to talk about outside of the great show itself. And so please, if you could subscribe, or if you're on audio podcast and you've subscribed to audio podcast, follow us on your social media channel of choice. You can go to Blue Sky, Threads, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at double PHQ, the word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters, double podcast headquarters, double PHQ, and talk to us because this is so fun. Catfish, are you ready to transition into silo speculation?
Oh man, let's do it. You might answer some of my questions while we speculate.
So this is one, and listeners, I hope you were watching the show and watching it the way at least I felt I was. Juliette has tried. Solo's not going to open that door. She goes to sleep. She gets awakened by Solo playing music. As she's like, okay, let me go see what in the world Solo's doing.
Was Red Rain a comment on the global poisoning?
Peter Gabriel poisoned our ears. No, I'm kidding. But these are wonderful questions, Catfish. But as she's walking to Solo, this could just be a poor camera operator, but it sure did look like the camera was trying to change positions as if it was from the point of view of someone watching Juliette. Oh. Then later, Solo says, hey, I haven't been outside this room ever. And so you're like, well, wait a minute. If Solo really hasn't left the vault ever, who cut Juliette's rope in the first episode? Because when she was making her rope to swing over to the vault, she went up and looked at that rope and it looked like it was cut. So Catfish, this could be, once again, just me reading too much into it. But if Solo hasn't left the vault and her rope was cut, is there somebody else in this silo besides Solo? What do you think? And if so, who is in Silo 17 and who is cutting a rope? What do you think?
Well, Bubba, I love that you're making this show, either through your book knowledge or just through
Oh,
your desire for interest, more interesting than I assumed that it was. Because this
yeah.
was originally one of Catfish's questions for tonight
Oh,
was,
okay.
how did the food get out there if he's never left? But later on, now he doesn't come out and say it, but Juliette says, well, you came out here earlier
Right.
and to leave me food. And he said, he didn't say yes I did, but he said, but you weren't here.
Right.
So
He can open the door when she's not there. Right.
I assume he was the one who cut the rope, just like he's the one who came out and left the food. That's what I assume. But feel free to wildly speculate.
Let me say that if there wasn't that odd shot, that odd camera shot, looking down on Juliette as she's walking towards the place, the vault where Solo is, there is this odd camera shot that makes it look like the camera itself is kind of ducking lower to kind of look at Juliette through a handrail and a bit of a stairwell or like just look through like, oh, I don't want to get caught. I better sneak down and look at her. So I was like, what an odd shot. And then Solo says he hadn't been outside. Now you're right. He has been outside. He's opened the door. He put the food out. But is there somebody else in Solo's abandoned silo? We know that the dead people outside the vault, Juliette points out, these people, they didn't die as long time ago like the people outside did. So,
right.
I mean, what's going on here, Catfish? What do you assume is going on here? I want you to speculate. You've already kind of hit it. Did Solo kill those two people outside the vault?
I mean, I said that, but again, you know what? There's going to be no questions left for Catfish. One of my questions was, how did he kill them / how did they die? Because I can't assume that they just hung around until they ran out of water and perished. There is
just
an
died together. Would you both die of lack of water and food and everything right next to each other, and then kind of put your bodies dead right next to each other?
Let's say this.
Okay.
My speculation is, if there's someone else in the silo, I don't think Solo knows. He doesn't, if he's sort of in league with whoever this is, it doesn't feel like he would come out. It feels like he came out because it's like, there's finally a person here that I can interact with. So if there is another person out there, it doesn't seem likely that Solo is like, hey, look, here's another person here. I've hatched up this great plan with my compatriot to do
right.
something unfathomable to me at this point, what their plan would be. I mean, after all, she's like, thank you for feeding me. And he's like, I needed to see you eat. And the first thing I thought was, oh, poison. Okay,
right,
the show's over.
That's what I thought too. I needed you to digest this delicious poison.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Listeners, I'm coming to you. Once again, this is really based on the show. I mentioned this shot. I mentioned this, him saying he hadn't left the vault, even though he had. So listeners, do you think there's somebody else in Silo 17 where Solo is? Let's hear your speculation. Go down in the comments. No book spoilers on this. I could see how you might think of book spoilers, but for this, in this YouTube comments at least, leave the book spoilers out. We'll have a spoiler version coming out pretty soon. Catfish, that's wonderful. Let's hear our second segment.
All right, our second segment is better in the silo than we are here right now at this present time, or worse in the silo. Bubba, what's your answer? For this episode 3 only.
This is, as I keep saying, American holiday called Thanksgiving. And the idea of Thanksgiving is you gather up the people who you care about, the people in your life, your family, and you get together and you
Wait, hold on. I want to make sure. See, those are potentially two separate groups, correct?
Well,
your family and the people that you care about.
Catfish, you're getting to it. You're like, what do a lot of times people think during Thanksgiving? They're like, oh my God, I got to talk to my damn crazy uncle. And so it's obviously better in the silo. There's no family members. You can't talk about, nobody, your QAnon family members. You're like, I won't have to deal with them. You can go in the silo, just be you and Solo. And Solo is somehow less crazy than your QAnon family members. You're like, dear God, this person's nuts. So that's what I say. better in the silo. Thank you, episode 3.
So once again, Sims and flamethrower Phil.
Yes,
What's
Patrick
his name?
Kennedy.
Okay, Sims comes up with this idea with Patrick Kennedy, and he sets up what is commonly referred to in this country as a false flag operation. And
Yes.
Bubba, I love false flag operations. But in the United States, all we have is false flag operations.
Oh, okay, right.
People keep talking about false flag operations, but they're not. It's complete BS. So since I love false flag operations, obviously it's better in the silo.
Let me say, in the silo, you also, if you do a false flag, you also get drugs that make you forget the last 4 years.
For the last like 22 years, he wakes up and he goes,
Right.
"Oh, 30 years old. What? Oh my God, what happened to my face?"
He wakes back up and he says, "Man, I can't wait to hear all the great music the Pixies have created in the last 25." Oh, wait, what? More drugs. Hey, listeners, we got some feedback. I apologize. I didn't pull this person's name that says we are too snarky, and they think we're so snarky that we don't like the show. Listen, we try to make each other laugh. We're very snarky, but we love this show. We gave it high ratings. And so let's get into it, Catfish. Let's get into this great episode. We can talk about either the solo silo, which is apparently silo 17, where Juliette and Solo are. We can talk about the up top and the political machinations of Bernard and Sims and the judge. Or do you want to talk about the down deep, where, they're getting screwed? Like, you do not want to be in mechanical working in the down deep. It is tough. Which one do you want to talk about first, Catfish?
Let's start with the Midsummer Night's Dream favorite group of characters, and that is the Mechanicals.
Teddy, who is a character who actually has appeared in many episodes. They don't say his name much, and he hasn't had many lines. But it begins with him being arrested, Catfish, because he painted the JL Juliette Lives graffiti. This goes over terribly. The down deep, which it felt like in the last episode was only a few, Shirley had maybe 8 members of her rebellion wanting to start. Everybody is upset about this. Teddy's mom is obviously upset about this. Shirley is like, the up top is not going to make an example of Teddy. Teddy did paint the graffiti, which is, I guess, technically illegal. But what did you think of this setup, Catfish? What do you think? I mean, these people are on edge, and then you start arresting them for painting graffiti. Ooh, not good. Do you understand their anger and all the craziness going down there?
I mean, I understand all their anger. I think probably we should talk about what's being done to them when we talk about the up top. So without knowing why this is all going on, it really does seem like the things that are happening. Well, I won't talk about intentions. I will just say that the things that are happening seem to be inflaming the situation more than tamping it down.
Right. The down deep does have kind of two sides. There's the Shirley, burn this down, we want the truth. And there's the Knox side. Knox told Juliette's old shadow, Cooper, hey, follow Shirley, make sure she doesn't get in any trouble. Knox calls out Cooper. He's like, listen, dude, you were supposed to report on me what she was doing, not join her. This is kind of ugly. In maybe some ways, this is really effective of Bernard because he's got the two sides fighting each other in the down deep.
Well, again, without talking about what Bernard's plan is, I mean, the thing that Cooper, I think if I was Cooper, why not just with a straight face? Okay, just give me kind of the flavor of what you said as Knox.
Listen, Cooper, I told you to follow Shirley. Make sure she doesn't start up anything, not join her. You don't think I have other people following her than you? You betrayed me, Cooper. You're a lowly shadow, and you betrayed me, the head of mechanical.
Wait, you got other people? Don't you trust me?
Well, they're shadows of you, and so they've been shadowing you, Cooper.
I just like the ballsiness of, yes, I betrayed you, but wait, no trust?
Oh, my goodness. And really think about this. There was Juliette, and Cooper was her shadow to oversee the generator. Has anybody been shadowing Cooper well enough to repair this generator.
No. Oh, no.
We're doomed in the down deep.
Well, in the down deep, I presume, just like up top, they've got a little special room set aside that's like 15 by 15 with nice shelves and lighting, and all it has is one book in it. And that book explains how to do Juliette's job.
How about this, Catfish? How much security do you need in the vault to protect the one book? Like, you got to put in a code, you got to have a key to get in the first door, and then, I mean, it is crazy. And let's just get to it. In the down deep, we do like these characters. We joke about him, but I love Deputy Hank, don't you? I mean, this is wonderful.
I'm going to say Deputy Hank, if everything goes down, now I know a nice example for who Deputy Hank is going to be. Deputy Hank is going to be the Solo of Silo 18. He is, like I said last week, whoever survives, he will be on that side. And it may just be his side.
Shirley and her bunch of rebel rousers come up to Deputy Hank, his deputies, as well as Judicial Raiders. Judicial Raiders, who one we saw was pulled down and, kind of forced to be a raider again, even though he was in retirement, because Sims wants
for this shit.
Sims wants this to happen. Knox, I assume he's trying to calm things down. Listen, we all want the same things. We all want Teddy back. But Patrick Kennedy, he wants those forget-me-nots. He wants those forget-me drugs. He does it. He throws the Molotov cocktail, starts the riot. Then Reggie, this retired judicial raider who got pulled back for one last job, opens fire, kills. Probably he was always meant to kill Patrick Kennedy. But then Cooper, Catfish, what do you think about Cooper?
Cooper? He gone.
What? R.I.P. Cooper. What's great is Shirley and Knox try to revive him. Nobody tries to save Patrick Kennedy at all. Patrick Kennedy's right next to Cooper. He's like, does anybody want to stop the bleeding? This is brutal. And because it's so brutal, Hank, our hero, Deputy Hank, gets on the wireless to Billings, Sheriff Billings, and he says, listen, dude, we need you downstairs. How do you think Billings is? I mean, Billings is not in a good place. I don't think he's been very successful kind of at anything recently. Do you imagine him doing well in the down deep, Catfish, Sheriff Billings?
I just can't imagine he's been completely set up for failure. And if there's anybody who's going to be sympathetic, it will be him. So maybe this will put him at further cross purposes with with Sims and Bernard.
All right. The down deep storyline pretty much ends with Shirley and Knox, I guess, having a let's stop fighting amongst ourselves. Let's get this straight. Knox gives her the great, hey, listen, you want to punch something? Just punch me.
Check.
It was better than that Netflix fight a couple of weeks ago with Mike Tyson. She gets him good. Cheryl, you're not the only one who's angry. You're not the only one who's lost Jules. What about Cooper? We also lost Cooper anyway. And then Shirley's like, hey, I'm not sure we lost her. Knox is like, it's been 2 days. Boy, it feels like it's been a lot longer than 2 days because we're in episode 3. Knox pitches to her, hey, you know what? Maybe this whole thing can tie together and we can get some truth from this wall of names down by the digger and the flooded out silo. Any thoughts on this part, Catfish? Any speculation on this part?
I mean, this is what I like to call double S, sane speculation.
Okay, let's hear it.
Pretty sure that this is there was a rebellion put down in this silo years and years ago, and they're probably just they put heroes' names on the wall, and they're going to need more space on those walls.
Oh man, yeah, get Cooper's name on that wall. He went out a hero.
Did he though?
I was setting you up. I knew you'd be evil. I just had to just set it up. Okay, where do you want to go next? Catfish, do you want to stay in this silo and go to the up top or jump over to the abandoned silo? What do you want to talk about next?
Let's go to, once again, Matt Gates' favorite place, Silo 17.
Oh my goodness gracious. Topical. I really did like this episode so much. I thought it was so good. And this interaction, even though it is just two people talking, I thought it's great. I think what's funny is if you've listened to all our podcasts about Silo, in season 1, a lot of times I'd be like, why is Juliette angry and yelling? She punched Cooper. Remember, Cooper helped her fix the generator because he did like one thing she didn't like. She punched him afterwards. Like, Juliette was filled with rage. And seeing her in these scenes where you almost see her start raging Juliette, but kind of come back to practical Juliette, somebody who does have an engineer's mind of how am I going to do this? I thought it was good for her. And I thought, before we even talk it through, Catfish, how do you feel about Solo? You joked about you like him better behind the door, but any thoughts about Steve Zahn, who's been great in a million things, or this character? He's a great character of somebody who hasn't had any direct contact with human beings for who knows how long. I mean, this is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just repeat what I said, that I found him more interesting kind of behind the door. Obviously, we'll eventually get more information out of him as he guides her towards the fire suits, helps her with the fire suits, helps her get out.
Right.
But I'm not sure what else he has to tell her. Well, he tells her to jump ahead just a little bit.
Yeah.
He tells her the most important thing, where Juliette, it almost like you see the light bulb over her head with the big ruh-roh when he says, someone left and went over the hill and it started a revolution. Oh, boy.
Right. Somebody didn't clean. They left the cameras. Everybody thinks, well, we didn't see him die. That must mean it's okay to go outside. What a tragedy for Silo 17. And it is wonderful to see Juliette. You know, you are joking, Catfish, but you can see in her acting the light bulb go, ruh-roh. I love that. Let's get to some, once again, clues, maybe world building facts that Solo spits out, because there's so many. He lets her know, hey, there are 50 silos. He even knows which ones are where. He's like, well, these are the closest to Silo 17 where we are. He doesn't have a last name. He's like, Solo, I don't have a last name. She says, Solo what? He's like, no, there is no Solo. I'm here by myself, so I'm Solo. Do you want to come up with Solo's last name?
I'm going to call him Solo Rolo.
Okay. I was going to call him Grizzly Solo Adams. I mean, that beard. Somebody get this guy a razor. So
he's got an entire meal saver on his face, not just a flavor saver.
Well, I want to say this again. No one forced the people out. They chose to leave. And when they did, it was a nice day. Right. Everybody was smiling. But then that dust started to blow again. And I think the poison went away for a bit, but it came back, a lot of it.
Now, hold on, Bubba.
Whoa, Catfish. What is he implying here?
Presumably, and I mean, I don't think it's not too much of a jump, but it could not be true unless we had a clue for it. That the revolution that we saw in episode 1 was Silo 17. And those people, a lot of them didn't get very far.
No.
So it doesn't really seem like, for the revolution that we saw in episode 1, that the air was clean.
Right. What's interesting is that the guy with the flag, who in episode 1, who marched out at the front of the procession, we saw he got the farthest, but he didn't get very far.
He didn't get very far. Now, he did get further than the people who go out in the suits that don't have a lot of, but again, they sort of take their time slowly.
That I wasn't so sure about, Catfish.
Well, they do take their time and they go clean.
Right.
So,
okay.
But again, the faster you run, the more you breathe in, the quicker the toxins are going to get to you. So, But in any case, it would be an exaggeration to say that the air was clean when the people went out in the revolution that we saw. Did I miss something, or that where we were explicitly told in episode 1 that this was Silo 17 revolution?
No, but it was. Sorry.
It was. Because the people are pouring out of here. Yeah. We saw the flag. Okay, right. Yeah, that seems good enough.
And let's just briefly, once again, talk through exactly what this Ron Tucker cleaning went down. The guy, he theoretically, no, we don't know, but he knew something was up, because rather than clean, he wrote lies. Or did he write liars? No, he wrote lies. He wrote lies on the lens of the camera. Then he went around the corner and out of sight. He never came back. People in his silo watched that again. Hey, he didn't die. They paint lies on the big screen, And according to Solo, that's when the fighting started. I mean, this is just brutal, Catfish. Does this answer all your questions about what went down in Silo 17? To me, it's a pretty good explanation. They had a cleaning. This guy, a bit like Juliette, knew that it was a lie. He didn't clean, and because he didn't clean, it ended up killing everybody.
Okay, so I just can't assume, though, that even though we saw them, the revolutionaries storm the gates in episode 1 in Silo 17, that when they went out, they killed everybody or the people chased them. Why wouldn't there be some people who are like, well, they got away from us, so we're just going to kick it here? Why aren't there more people than Solo alive?
Well, obviously, the only thing I can say that you would piece together from the show is that probably wasn't 10,000 bodies outside, right? Like it was probably maybe 2,000 bodies or whatever the number was. It was enough people that when kind of natural things would happen in a silo, maybe like flooding. Now, this is me assuming. So say the silo is 10,000 people working, doing all this stuff. If the people in charge of the silo, making sure it doesn't flood, making sure that, the electricity always works, the food always grows, whatever, if those people are dead and the silo does start flooding, how long really would it take for, the remaining 8,000 or 7,000 or however many thousand who are still in the silo? How long would it take for them to die? Would they start turning on each other? Obviously, they were threatening Solo because they wrote that thing on the door for him to see, like, hey, we're going to get in and get you. I forget what the graffiti on the door.
Right. It says something like that.
Say you're the remaining, say 5,000 went out and died. Say 5,000 remain. They can't stop the silo from losing electricity, from flooding, all this stuff. When does it become a battle over resources? Like, hey, yeah, we'll all, the 5,000 of us will share the remaining food or what, make sure everybody gets some of this and this. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, me and mine need food. And so Bubba, I'm assuming a lot.
This is very topical, Bubba, because I think in the United States, we're about to find out what happens when we get rid of all the people who do the jobs no one wants to do.
Yeah, who needs expertise? Okay, Juliette, like you said, she has this brilliant light bulb moment come on. She realizes, oh, crap, I got to go back there and tell people not to freak out. That said, if she suddenly appears on the cameras more again saying, hey, guys, don't come outside, like, isn't that going to freak them out even more? Like, hey, guys, she's still alive. We could go, like, she's got to think this through. I think her thought process is right of like, hey, I can't let my old silo die like this one did. But she's got to think about how do you really prevent it from where she is. Solo pitches her the idea that you mentioned about, hey, maybe you could use a fire suit to go outside because it does have an oxygen tank. It does have a mask, yada, yada, yada. But of course, to do that, she's going to have to do some swimming.
Now, here's another question, Bubba, that is sort of just, this is sort of a from 10,000 feet view.
Sure.
So before they put people in the silos, did they have a test silo that they ran for like 20 years and then they developed the book off of it? Like, or did they just
the book of order,
or did they just give people some drugs and just say, imagine anything that could happen? And then, okay, but also I want you to be very reactionary about it. So for example, let's see, if someone cleans and leaves, what could happen there? Well, okay, let's prepare for war. Like, who came up with this book and how did they know what they were doing was right?
Catfish, these are wonderful questions. Again, this for everybody who is maybe new to the cleaning podcast. We talk about some of the stuff in the book section. What I guess is fair to say is that I always refer to, hey, we are still not complete with the first book in the trilogy. So this is a trilogy of books by this author, Hugh Howey. We're not even 60% of the way through the first book. Those brilliant questions you're asking, and all the questions you're asking, there are answers, but technically, and I guess this could be a spoiler, but the show can do whatever it wants. Technically, those are really in the second book. So it's tough for me to even kind of hint when I think, well, the show may not even get close to those type of answers in this season at all. I hope that doesn't turn anybody off. I don't know anything. They could get to second book content in this season. But right now, You're asking very smart questions, and you're wondering the things that as a reader would wonder, a show watcher would wonder. I just think if the show is what trying to follow the books, that's a second book thing, and currently we're not close to the second book. So,
all right, season 7, got it. Okay, check. All right, so also we find out we've got another shadow here. Solo was the shadow. That is amazing. I love that. And Juliette tells him, I also didn't clean. And Bubba, when, like you said, she got that look on her face, I was reminded one time I was watching a documentary about people, I don't know why, people who had attempted suicide by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh no. And who lived, maybe?
Yes, and who lived, of course, because they're interviewing them. And this one person said, as soon as I let go of the rail, I realized I'd made a mistake. So
that's very honest. That's good.
Juliette says here, like, oh boy, I have made a terrible mistake. So what is she going to do? She's got a plan. She's going to make another suit. Bubba, yeah. I hope they've got the good tape here in Silo 17.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Her supplies
Holy cow.
do not look good. Her supplies do not look good. To get to the fire equipment, she's got to go underwater, but she's like, well, I'll need to make some sort of diving suit where oxygen can get in, but Solo, you'll have to be out here working it. Solo, I can't. I can give you food. I can play you great tunes, but I can't do it. Boy, Solo, you're frustrating. He comes out and he has some great lines. Like, she looks at him and he's like, do I look bad? Man, if you've ever had, I've had some blind dates give me that look. So it's tough for Solo.
She's like, as opposed to what? Do you mean like your first role? Then yes.
And it kind of ends with them having this, for lack of a better word, humanizing moment where Solo says to her, you really are here, aren't you? If I was to, and I said this on a book spoiler section a while ago, to me, if you were to talk about the top 3 characters that book readers like from this first book, I would not be surprised if this character, Solo, is in the top 3 of the characters that people like the most in this book. And if he's not number 1 for some people, because he's a person trying to learn how to interact again. And that's a very fun idea for a character. So hopefully listeners will grow to like him.
Are you telling me that he is higher than our buddy, Jorah Mormont, Sir Friendzone, Juliette's dad, who also managed to tell a bad joke in this show as well?
It's catching. I'm not sure the writers on the show know how to, have they ever had a good laugh, Catfish? Like, have they ever had a laugh on purpose where a character was trying to be funny?
No, no. And you know what? It's funny because I always
How about Patrick
say,
Kennedy? He had some, R.I.P. Patrick Kennedy. He had some zingers.
There are some zingers. You do need to have some laughs. I usually really ding a show if it is completely joyless.
Yep.
This is why I stopped watching The Handmaid's Tale, because I was like, look.
Fun, filled with laughs.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Think about our next 4 years. We're still going to have some laughs, for God's sakes. All right. Anyway, all right. Speaking of the next 4 years, let's go up top.
Bernard is bringing his old shadow back into the fold. Come into the vault, Judge. He's discussing the order with her, and she's like, I tried to forget it, but let's look at this book. Let's look at my bug.
Is this the Jedi Order? It all comes together.
It does. And so this order, Catfish, the order kind of does know everything. Like, hey, if there's a failed cleaning, you've got to crack down on graffiti or anything that glorifies the person who went outside.
But let's just say, as I discussed earlier, it talks about everything and it talks about what to do. Whether it's effective or completely counterproductive is up for debate. Let's say that.
The cameras below level 120, everything below 120, the cameras are out. This kind of gets to something that I've always kind of snickered about the show. The cameras are supposed to be top secret, but everybody like Patrick Kennedy knew about them. And so there was this weird craziness. But anyway, all the cameras in the Down Deep are gone. The judge, how about this for a question for you and for listeners? Always go down and give us comments on this, of your thoughts on this. The judge seems obsessed with the question, did Juliette say she actually wanted to go outside? Why do you imagine Judge Meadows is so obsessed with that question?
That is a great question, Bubba, that I don't know the answer to. Again, she asks him here. She gets the report from Billings and she calls him out on it. So it clearly is important to her, although apparently second in importance to going outside in her
Yeah.
suit, sliding down the hill in the snow with a hat on.
Now, we know that Judge Meadows was Bernard's shadow 25 years ago. According to Bernard, Silo 17 has been dead from before she was his shadow, meaning that Solo has been in that room theoretically for a quarter of a century. Youch.
Wow.
Now,
she does also say, I mean, again, this brings up the whole point of like, she knows what the book says to do. She is suggesting other things.
yeah, she's a political animal. She says, hey, you got this guy from mechanical, but you got to arrest people from every level. So it's not seen as such a crackdown on the down deep people. And
Right,
she even
but
says,
also
release
she's-
them. That's
yeah.
pretty political. I think she's smart.
Right. She is smart, but I don't know why she doesn't say it would be maybe better to explain to Bernard. She does say, I know what the book says, but you should do this.
Right.
But really, if she was really smart or cared that much, because it is funny, because it's like she does want to know some things, but in the end, she's like, measure from my suit and kick me out. I don't give a crap. To say to Bernard, like, look, think this through. You can either calm things down or you can set people against each other, which is what you're supposed to do, which seems crazy. There are not enough people in this silo to set people against each other. And if you know you're going to start setting people against each other, bring in all those ladies and take out that birth control ASAP, because you're going to need some fresh bodies up in here.
Now, Sims, I've been kind of cruel on Sims. In the book, he's just dumb muscle. On the show, he's been kind of wishy-washy, but I like menacing Sims. I like almost smart Sims. Sims is got Patrick Kennedy. He's one of the people here in judicial seclusion. He's got him in a sex dungeon, it seems like. And Sims comes in and says, hey, listen, there's this drug that can make you forget. Small dose, you can forget the last few weeks. We can take you back to before your wife Doris died. Patrick Kennedy wants it all gone. He wants the quarter century solution, Catfish. What do you think about this?
If you want to talk about dumb muscle, for Patrick Kennedy to believe, oh, this I'm sure this drug is going to work out just fine for me.
Well, what if it didn't? How would you know? I don't remember taking the drug. Sims, you told me you were going to give me the drug, but I did give you the drug. I don't remember that. Okay. Somebody who I generally like this character, but he is way deep over his head, and I almost wrote kind of pathetic, and that's Billings. Billings, I mean, he knows he's been given a snow job, but he's trying to go to everybody. He's going to the judge. Hey, listen, judge, I've got to do this thing. And he tells the judge, hey, I've got the syndrome. Dude, why would you tell anybody that? Do you know what that could mean for you? He's supposed to be loyal to the pack to a fault. He really is. But yet he's willing to come forward and say, hey, judge, I've got the syndrome. I can't do it. And so Billings, I really feel like, dude, you need to retire, Billings. Like you're in over your head. You're deep trouble. Just give it up.
I'll be frank with you, Bubba.
Okay.
This to me, and I know it's funny because we've got Sir Friendzone Jorah Mormont on this show, and we started off our podcasting career with the Joffrey of podcasts. This is almost like the syndrome is how they dropped little drops about grayscale in the show until they needed it in like episode in season 3, season 4, whenever. It really feels like they built on this. Billings has been really put down this season. Maybe he just had to say it to the judge so that we can remember, oh yeah, Billings has got the syndrome. Because otherwise, you are right. It makes absolutely no sense. And maybe the other reason to bring it up, like if anybody cared what the syndrome is about, we don't, because it hasn't been enough of a plot point for us to really
True.
care about it. The judge thinks that it's a natural reaction. We weren't meant to live underground. That makes sense. Not enough people have it, but it makes sense. We should say the sane people are the insane people.
Now, the judge, she has her own, it's not the syndrome, but she's got her own thing. She wants to go out on a non-cleaning. She wants to leave. She's obsessed with the before time. She's got a projector and she's able to watch people walking on a beach. What's so funny is obviously we hate the oppression. We hate the Orwellian society of the silo. But having people see this projector of human beings walking on the beach and giving that natural pull to be like, I want to be out of this silo, that's not healthy. That you wouldn't want anybody to see this projector of a family walking on the beach, because that's just going to encourage people to be like, we got to get out of this silo. And so,
It's certainly done it for the judge, who coincidentally, or maybe it's linked, has decided to sober up and get her life straight and also commit suicide simultaneously.
Hey, let's get Dr. Peter Nichols out of the way. He's walking in the garden. Everybody must know him if he's the fertility doc, and it's so kind of regimented who can have kids. This woman, Phoebe, sees him and she's like, hey, I got a shot at the lottery. Dr. Nichols knows how much his kids were important to him. He goes back to his office. He looks up this woman. Guess what? I'm not supposed to let her have a kid. A bit like Allison wasn't allowed to have a kid. This woman's not supposed to have a kid. So if she wins the lottery, I'm supposed to do the fake, I took out the birth control device and leave it in. And he has his own mini rebellion and says to hell with it. He actually does take out her birth control thing when he's not supposed to. If Bernard finds out about this, oh boy, if his daughter didn't get him in enough trouble, this is trouble. What do you think, Catfish?
By the time it becomes apparent that this woman is pregnant, Bernard is going to have a lot more serious problems on his plate than this. And as I said earlier, will be putting baby making into overdrive.
Let me say that these scenes, it was a bit confusing to me watching it. I thought I understood it, but I actually had to talk to you, Catfish, to make sure I really understood it. And why don't you talk about what the kind of charade, the scam that Dr. Nichols was supposed to pull on this woman that Allison, back in the very first episode of season 1, had pulled on her. How did this scam work? Let everybody know.
Right. So as far as I remember, because I was piecing it together as I was watching it, so he pretends to take out the thing, and he does take out the thing, but then he puts in another one of the baby blockers in and shows the bloody one. Aha, here you go. Now, it would have been a little subtler if he hadn't been clanging things behind the sheet. But what do they know? They don't know how surgery works.
I don't know how surgery works. To me, it was like, she's awake for this procedure.
Listen, they don't have enough. They got to save all their happy gas for when people go out cleaning.
Well, how about give her the drug so she forgets all this? You know what? I want the drug so I could forget something.
But let me. Yeah. I want to make this clear, because this is so you don't ask a question later. Sure. Well, and I hope this doesn't depress you for the rest of the podcast. Yeah. But that drug is not real.
Wait. Okay. Sure. Fine. But is the drug real? Have you told me that yet? I need the drug.
Once you get to a certain age, the drug just works naturally.
All right. So Bernard, let's wrap up the final bit of the episode. Bernard and the judge have their sexy time together. Bernard's got a plan. He's going to shut down all the monitors. Somehow he'll have to get everybody away because he's going to open the door to the silo. You would think people in the up top sheriff department would hear it. She's going to have 5 minutes in her own suit to go over the hill, to do what she wants to do, to kind of end her life her way. Bernard, how about this? I had no idea. Bernard has his own suit? Is all I'll say to that. Catfish, what did you think about this? Did you think that this was a creepy romance? What is going on here, Catfish?
I mean,
have I been helpful? You're the only person I can talk to.
But you know what? It's funny. But her great riposte was, "Yeah, but you don't listen to a damn thing I say. Why don't you go talk to Sims if you ain't gonna listen to me?" I mean, it is weird. All I can think of is that Bernard is his the tension is making him seek kind of physical connection
Yes.
but not an intellectual or emotional connection because Bernard, no.
Do you want them to have an emotional connection? Do you want the weird iciness between them to melt so that before she goes on her non-cleaning, she can have a moment of passion with Bernard?
No. Good Lord, no.
Catfish, you just hate love. Open your heart one time. Hey, that's the episode.
I mean, if you gave me the choice between Creeper Bernard and the bad tape, I would take the bad tape.
How could you give love a chance? Hey, listeners, we're once again being too snarky. All right, we're going to take a serious judicial debate right now. But as we say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. Please subscribe. Please give us these comments. Please write to us on social media. We got 7 more weeks of this fun. We're going to be into 2025 before this is over. Let's talk through it. Let's have some fun. And let's have our judicial debate. This judicial debate, hopefully we'll be able to take it serious and not fall into our typical snark. Catfish, I wondered at the end of this episode, which I really liked, 9 out of 10, who are you rooting for? And what's funny is that all of the sides, generally, I think you do kind of have a bit of rooting interest for them, even though they're against each other. Like, are you rooting for Juliette to come back and stop her silo from rioting and maybe take down Bernard? Is that who you're rooting for? Or is a part of you rooting for Bernard to not allow his silo to fall into rebellion and kill everybody like Silo 17 happened? Are you rooting for Shirley and the Down Deep to overthrow these big brother people who are monitoring them and forcing them to live a certain way? But once again, that means that they could end up like Silo 17. Are you rooting for Sims to cause more trouble? Or do you want Sims to become Bernard's shadow so that way Bernard will stop creeping on the judge? Who are you rooting for? And if you're rooting for more, let's hear your ranking of them.
Now, Bubba.
Yeah.
This is going to be a little contradictory because just more recently, I've lost even more faith in people than I had previously.
Yes.
But somehow, this is one thing that I personally having issue with the show.
Okay.
Somehow, I still believe that people would be better off in the silo if they knew the truth, whatever truth that is. That if it was just open, if people weren't being tracked, if people were given more information, they had access to the past, they had all this information. So for me, it's hard for me to not say, let's just open it up. I'm less in believing that like Bernard has to tamp down the rebellion. Whatever they're hiding from people, the truth is it's bad out there. And that's the only thing you need to know that like we need to stay strong in the silo. So for me, I don't know why the silo has been running this way. I think you're only bound to cause rebellions when you do it this way. So for me, I'm not buying that people need to be contained like their children. Again, this is faith I have in humans, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
because I've lost a lot of faith in humans.
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for Juliette or the Down Deep, Juliette to somehow take down Bernard, and everything opens up. And maybe if that involves Sims, whatever his plans are, maybe this is his long-term plan somehow to like open things up, and then everybody lives happily in the silo forever and ever, and no one ever goes out to clean again.
Okay, I like that. I am rooting, this is going to sound like a joke, but it's a joke made from truth. I'm rooting for Deputy Hank. I want Deputy Hank to have some peace in his life and for him to somehow just chill everybody out. Like if Deputy Hank, they grow a lot of crops to feed 10,000 people. if they're growing some marijuana so Deputy Hank can light it up and get everybody to chill out. I do want everybody to know the truth, but at the very most, I want good things for Deputy Hank. I don't want to see him go.
Bubba, I don't know why you need to worry. How many times do I have to tell you that Deputy Hank will be the last? If there's only one person left standing,
is he not in the crosshair?
No, he's always on everyone's side. He'll be protected. Who's the next Coop to jump in front of Deputy Hank and save him? Coop, he gone.
Listeners, who are you rooting for? What are you rooting for in this, in some ways, impossible situation? In other ways, isn't this what great drama is? Impossible situations. Go down in the YouTube comments, let us know. And then if you have an answer for our next section, also let us know those as well. And what is that next section, Catfish?
It's the double D's, double Q's.
I don't even know what you said. What?
It's the deeply dumb catfish questions.
Oh.
Bubba,
and what are those this week?
A lot of my dumb questions were answered. How the food came out. Why Sims and Bernard decided to stoke trouble rather than calm it down. But so I have just a few small questions today, not overall questions. Number one is, how does the judge know that everything the order says in the book is just flat out wrong with how to deal with things? Right. Is it emotional intelligence, Bubba?
If she's been drinking for 25 years, there's no way she can remember everything in that dang book.
Well, I would say she does have a lot of emotional intelligence because she is just as creeped out by Bernard as I am.
Hey now.
Speaking of that, Bubba, how long will the judge deal with Bernard man ignoring her?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. Obviously, we don't talk book spoilers here, so I will let anybody stew on that interesting question. Do you have a speculation to answer your own question?
Well, Bubba, I know she says she wants to go out, but maybe she's got some, even though it's clear that, she's got a lot of support for wanting to go out. Maybe she is smarter than we think. Mm-hmm. And she's got some plan to screw with Bernard, not screw Bernard. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Do you have a final catfish question?
I do, Bubba. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It was, how did Solo of Silo 17 kill the people trying to get in / how did they die? So we talked about it already, but this is what I want. People, we have got some great comments tonight. People speculating on some stuff, and I love it. This is we've got some triple S tonight. Some seriously screwy speculation, and I am here for it. So
let's get to your feedback.
For people who don't know the books or know the books and can come up with some other answer, please let me know how you think Solo killed the people trying to get in, or how did they die? Because we know it wasn't poison stew.
Hey, let's get to some feedback, Catfish, to wrap up this non-book talk part of the podcast. Do you want to read this wonderful bit of speculation we got from YouTube user JS117?
This is what I was talking about. This is the kind of craziness we love here. Could it be on the show Bernard and Meadows possibly have a child? Because in their scenes, I noticed a lot of sexual tension between them. Whoa. I think Billings could be their son.
No, Todd. The syndrome son.
I think there's a big difference between sexual tension and sexual harassment. So I'm going to leave it there. The tension seems to be all on, I'll just say tension of one kind is on one side and tension of another kind is on another. But this could be interesting. I like the idea.
This feedback from Rapzid said, and this is feedback from episode 2. So any feedback we read is not from tonight's episode 3. Rapzid wrote, something is off this season compared to last season. There's some red flags. There was terrible engineering in the first episode titled The Engineer. In episode 2, there was the pointless home scene with the Sims where we watch him and his wife tell each other things we already know and they already know. Then he said these episodes, the first 2, are what they choose to release for the first 2 episodes of a season, thinking, these are awesome. This is going to be awesome. These episodes, ... Now, Rapzid, I was definitely tough on episode 2, but this episode really encouraged me. So Rapzid, if you're listening, please give us your thoughts on episode 3 if you turned around a bit like I did.
All right, and an old school listener, Tim's Retro Corner,
Yes,
says
we loved him.
tonight's show was taped in front of a restless silo. He says rating 3M. He's joking. Seriously, 8 double P's.
Wait, double P's?
Pirouetting politicians.
Oh, yes.
He says, I'm wondering how Judge Meadows didn't already know about the tape. If she'd been Bernard's shadow previously, then it would most definitely have been covered. Or was she a victim of the forgetting drug from season 1? But then she just said she wanted out. So here is Bernard's perfect excuse for a successful cleaning. He just needs to tell her she has the good tape while actually using the bad stuff. Oh dear, the new tape wasn't as good as we thought.
Dang, damn.
The thing that worries me about the pacing is they've told us the show will go 4 seasons, with seasons 3 and 4 being filmed back to back. If they drag book 1 out for 2 seasons, surely books 2 and 3 are going to be incredibly rushed. I guess Bubba will like that, LOL. Before you jump in, Bubba, I want to say this. When he says Judge Meadows didn't know about the tape, I think Bernard also didn't know about the tape either, right?
You mean Juliette's night's tape? Yeah, no, they didn't know.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. How Bernard didn't know about the tape, the judge didn't know about the tape, only Electrical knew about the tape. Do you want to comment on how people think that you need action or you're going to fall asleep on the couch?
Was this episode filled with action? No, but it was filled with tension, with raising stakes, with Cooper dying. Like, I've wanted to see all 3 of those things.
No, Bubba, I did not. Yeah. This is something that I did not know. Presumably you knew it, but I don't know how I missed it. That they have categorically said 4 seasons for this show.
Well, that is a classic TV thing. That's what they say, but it's easy to say 4 seasons in season 2. You know, who's to say and they're filming season 3 right now, which will actually come up in the book talk section.
Well, hold on. So if they're filming them back to back, then presumably if they've got season 3 and 4 written already, and they know they're going to come to the end, then
I had not read anywhere that they're filming season 3 and 4 back to back. I just know right now they're filming season 3.
All right.
So let me say that it's real easy to say this is what we want. But it's also the kind of thing where if Apple's being correct and you look at Apple's, top 10 shows, Silo's always near the top. And so if this is one of their top shows, why would you tell them only do 4 seasons? I mean, they're making Silo's, according to the Silo showrunner, Graham Yost, Yost said that it was Apple TV that said make each season 10 episodes as opposed to 8 like you see with other shows. So,
all right,
we will see. Ewan O'Connor wrote, with so many changes from the books, and again, this is about episode 2, they write, I hope the writers have planned this fully out for all the seasons and they're not just making it up 1 season at a time. I hope so too, but a lot of times in Catfish, you're there in Hollywood, and I've been there in Hollywood. A lot of times, yes, they have maps, but it's like, well, we intend to get to this in seasons 3, seasons 4. It's not like they've really gone through and beat by beat planned out seasons 3 and 4 normally. So I think they are really what you would say, okay, now we kind of want to cover this stuff in season 2, and that's where they plan out the beats. I would not imagine they have the beats when season 2 was being made of season 3 and 4. So,
well, that's funny because we have seen, we've had a friend of ours, Mork, who's pitched many shows, and he's shown us decks of shows where he pretty much had 3/4 of a page for each season to kind of lay out. These are the major beats of the season. I hope they've got it planned out.
Have you talked to Mork recently? He told me some of the things that he's working on, and I'm like, God, I really hope that pans out. That could be interesting. So
I have not.
Fingers crossed, Mork. I believe this next person has the handle No Pico Joke, maybe. Anyway,
sure.
They write, I wonder how much they will change from the story of the book. He's only read the first book, they write. Knox is trying to be Bernard of the Down Deep. LOL. I keep saying tape, like shame, shame, shame from Game of Thrones. Thank you so
much. And
much.
Ezra 27 also says TAPE. Now, Jerry Sugar says slow AF. Everyone who's read the books must be yelling, move it along already. At this pace, it will take 5 seasons just to finish the first book. There's plenty of material there. No reason to drag things out interminably.
Well, Jerry, that's how I felt. But DV, on the other hand, DV wrote, I liked episode 2 a lot. It had nice twists and character development. They mixed some of the scenes into episode 1 into it, and I think enough of the table has been set. Juliette reminds me a bit too much of MacGyver, building a complete episode around her. This next bit of feedback, Catfish, to set it up, last week on the podcast, I talked about it's a bit like James Bond. When you watch a James Bond film, the first actor you see playing James Bond, they're the one you tend to like the most. And so I said it's a bit like if you read the book first, you like the book better than the show. If you watch the show first, you like the show better than the book. And I was like, that's how people do it, James Bond. And Catfish, what did you say last week?
You said no one would choose Brosnan as their Bond. I meant to say Timothy Dalton. But Web Squizza says Brosnan was my Bond. Okay, fine. I'll take Brosnan. I suppose somebody must like Timothy Dalton, too.
Terrible. No Interleaving wrote, when you were holding up the Wool book,
which you love to do.
Right. I was really tough because my book is not called Wool. The 3 books that I own are called Silo, Level, and Exit. And so apparently No Interleaving might be German, and apparently the German names of the book are not Wool, Shift, and Dust, but Silo, Level, and Exit. Who knew? Thank you, No Interleaving. I hope that's correct.
That is crazy. And Jacob says for episode 2, 7 out of 10. Whoa. There seems to be only a handful of people that runs a silo. Maybe that's why it seems slow or off. Yeah, this episode does add, but it's just sprinkles. We're missing heavy hitters. I think the doctor may turn out not to be who he says.
Dr. Nichols.
All right. Let's have him do something.
Okay, we've had a lot of positive, a lot of negative comments on the season. This one is tough. This is from Al, who wrote, I'm a non-book reader, and I'm officially done with the show.
Oh, no. We lost
the first episode
listener.
The first episode of the show, I gave it the benefit of the doubt because it was the first episode and it was slow. But the second one, I was like, are you effing kidding? This will just be the same thing every season, build to a slow, mild simmer, and then back down to nothing, rinse and repeat. He was very frustrated. He says he doesn't have time for it. He says, your podcast work is appreciated, but not even you guys could make me stick around for this. Oh, sorry, Al.
Holy cow. I'm sorry we even read your feedback.
Hey, no.
You know what? Maybe someday Al will decide, you know what? Maybe it would be better if I just binge watch it. But after every episode, before I start the next episodes, listen to the cleaning.
Please.
Dominic says, I am happy not to have read the books. That kind of spoils it. Now we've got some more silo speculation from John Rivera. I think Walker is an obvious choice, but I'll go with the spy Cooper. This is for who's going to die next.
Who's going to die next? Great work, John.
Yes. Rivera. The reason is because Walker's too obvious of a pick and probably will get a more nuanced death. The spy dying could be what sparks further ignition towards rebelling. John Rivera, holy cow. You have put the nail on the head.
This person, JLP Jop Warmy, wrote, I love the podcast you guys do with the allusions to our current electoral predicament.
Oh, what predicament?
I was going to say, what allusions? Sutton. I love this feedback from Sutton. They wrote, as a person who watched the show first, then read the books afterward, I'm fine with the slow suspense and mystery. My problem is continuity. Walker had agoraphobia, and yet she leaves her home to bring the tape. And, this should be something that is kind of like slow growth and developed over time. But nope, it's like Walker flipped a switch and she's fine. And that's a good point. Walker was out of her shop in this episode too, episode 3. She says, I'm fine with the changes or differences in medium. But if you're going to, make a change, like, hey, I've got agoraphobia, now I'm going out, make it count. Love that feedback, Sutton.
I love it. And Darcy Zybert says, taking a slower pace on a TV show allows for more character development and investment by the viewers.
Yeah.
The in-helmet cameras are merely an extension of the system's obsession with info and control. It's also obvious via the advanced tech rooms that resources have never lacked for those purposes. That was, you were zinging you, Bubba. You were the one who was talking.
You were the one saying the cameras in the helmets were too much. Mr. Goodcat gave us this feedback at the beginning. I thought the poison was in the suit. And then I thought maybe, no, they're dying when they go cleaning because there's not much oxygen. But, you have to weigh more people to know exactly what they're doing, because those people are obviously trying, because they custom tailor every suit to fail. With the faulty tape, You simply provide them with the material designed to fail. Exactly right, Mr. Goodcat.
Okay, so this is what he's saying is that if this was a conspiracy, there'd be too many people on it. So everything is good except for the damn tape. Although, again, it still didn't last that long.
Nope.
But you have to wonder. I mean, at this point, when people go out, no one thinks they're going out because everything is fine and dandy.
Jensen says, this would have, he said, if they had combined these first two episodes is one, that would have been a great premiere. And he said the first couple episodes, they've really slowed it down with Juliette's childhood flashbacks, which Jensen didn't care for.
All right. And on Blue Sky, our old friend Link Hogthrob says,
old friend,
I want to go out.
Wait, what?
Hope is a powerful idea. Yep. Existence and living are two different things.
Heck
Mary woke up. Mayor grew up. 10 out of 10 double W's.
Double W's.
Wise walkers.
We love good old Matt, Link Hogthrob on Blue Sky. On Threads, our wonderful loyal listener Camille said, I enjoyed episode 2, but she's also a little annoyed with the changes from the books. I appreciate the book talk section because I've forgotten some things from the book. Oh, thank you.
And another old listener, Nicholas Fortuna, says, I enjoyed the episode, but I'm looking forward to the full throttle stuff that Bubba was expecting. This setup needs to be paid off. Also, is Commons acting becoming more robotic?
Nick, you may think his acting is becoming more robotic, but I've got this great drug that'll take you back to episode 1 that you won't remember his acting. Hey, that's going to be it for the non-spoiler stuff before we get to the book talk section. If you're leaving now and don't want to hear book talk stuff, you can always write to us on social media at PHQ, the word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters at PHQ. My name's Bubba. You can find me on many social media apps with the handle at FittenTrim. That's FITTENTRIM.
And you can also find me on social media apps at G to the Man. That is GEETOTHEMAN. Join us next week for season 2, episode 4 on the cleaning.